Marcus Webb woke up on a bench in Boston Common as the first light of dawn broke through the trees. Another night survived. 3 years of living on the streets had taught him to be grateful for small mercies: a bench instead of concrete, a mild September night instead of bitter winter cold, no one harassing him while he slept. He was 52 years old, but looked older. The streets aged you fast. His clothes were layered: 3 shirts, 2 jackets, pants worn thin at the knees. Everything he owned fit in a backpack that served as his pillow at night. His beard was long and graying, his hands rough and weathered. Marcus hadn't always been homeless. 3 years ago, he'd been a construction worker with a small apartment, a decent life. Then his company downsized. He lost his job. He couldn't make rent. He got evicted. He applied for jobs, but no one wanted to hire a 50-year-old laborer when younger, cheaper workers were available. His savings ran out. He ended up on the streets. At first, he'd been certain it was temporary. He'd find work, get back on his feet. But months turned into years. The longer you were homeless, the harder it became to escape. You couldn't get a job without an address. You couldn't get an address without money. You couldn't get money without a job. The cycle was vicious and unbreakable. Marcus had learned to survive through a combination of day labor when he could find it, panhandling when he couldn't, and the kindness of strangers who gave him food or a few dollars. He'd also learned the unwritten rules of street life: where it was safe to sleep, which shelters had space, where to get free meals, how to stay invisible to avoid trouble. This morning, Marcus folded the blanket he kept in his backpack, a donation from a church outreach program, and headed to the public restroom to wash his face. He looked at himself in the mirror. Sunken cheeks, tired eyes, the face of defeat. He looked away quickly. The plan for today was the same as every day. Walk to the corner of Boylston and Tremont where he sometimes panhandled, maybe make enough for breakfast, then check the day labor site to see if any construction jobs were available. If not, find something to occupy the long hours until evening when he could return to his bench. Marcus walked through Boston Common, past joggers and commuters starting their day. They looked through him, past him, anywhere but at him. Homeless people were invisible to most people. Marcus understood. He'd probably done the same thing before he ended up on the streets. He was walking past a trash can near the public garden when he noticed something: a wallet, lying on the ground next to the bench. Expensive-looking brown leather, slightly open. Marcus looked around. No one nearby seemed to be searching for anything. He picked up the wallet. Inside was more money than Marcus had seen in 3 years. Neat stacks of $100 bills. He counted quickly. 50 bills. $5,000 in cash. Marcus felt his heart pounding. $5,000. That was a fortune to someone living on the streets. That could get him into a shelter for months, could buy new clothes for job interviews, could pay for a cheap room while he found work, could literally change his life. His hands trembled as he held the wallet. He could just take the money and leave the wallet. No one would know. The owner probably wouldn't even report the cash missing, just the cards. Marcus could disappear into the city with $5,000 and transform his desperate situation. He looked at the identification cards. Jennifer Morrison, age 35. An address in Beacon Hill, one of Boston's wealthiest neighborhoods. Credit cards, business cards, identifying her as vice president at a financial firm. This woman was rich. $5,000 probably meant nothing to her. She'd barely miss it, but it meant everything to Marcus. He stood there for a long moment, wallet in his hands, wrestling with the decision: take the money and change his life, or do the right thing and stay trapped in homelessness. Marcus thought about who he used to be, before the streets, before the desperation, before survival became his only concern. He'd been raised by a grandmother who taught him about integrity, about doing right, even when it was hard. Character, she'd told him, is who you are when no one's watching. No one was watching now. No one would know if Marcus took this money, but he would know. Marcus closed the wallet and put it in his jacket pocket. He'd return it, all of it, including the cash, even though it might be the stupidest decision he'd ever made. The wallet had an address on the driver's license: Jennifer Morrison, 24/7 Mount Vernon Street, Beacon Hill. Marcus looked at his worn map of Boston, a free tourist map he'd picked up months ago. Mount Vernon Street was about a mile away. Marcus started walking. With each step he questioned his decision. $5,000. He could feel it in his pocket, could imagine what it could do for his life. He could turn around right now, keep the money, and no one would ever know. But he kept walking. Beacon Hill was a different world from the streets where Marcus usually spent his time. Elegant brick townhouses, tree-lined cobblestone streets, expensive cars parked outside. People in this neighborhood had more money than Marcus would see in a lifetime. He found 2047 Mount Vernon Street, a beautiful 4-story brownstone with flower boxes in the windows, and a shiny brass door knocker. Marcus looked down at his own appearance. Dirty clothes, worn shoes, unkempt beard. He probably looked like he was casing the place for a robbery. He climbed the steps and knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. Marcus checked the business cards in the wallet. Morrison Financial Group, 200 Clarendon Street. Her office. Maybe she was at work. Marcus walked to Clarendon Street. Another 40-minute walk. The address was a gleaming office tower in the heart of Boston's financial district. Marcus felt completely out of place, standing in the marble lobby surrounded by people in expensive suits. A security guard immediately approached him. "Sir, can I help you?" The tone wasn't helpful. It was the tone security guards used with homeless people who wandered into places they didn't belong. "I need to see Jennifer Morrison," Marcus said. "I found her wallet. I want to return it." The security guard's expression shifted from suspicion to surprise. "You found her wallet?" "Yes, sir. This morning in Boston Common. It has her identification and business cards. Can you call her?" The guard studied Marcus for a moment, clearly trying to determine if this was legitimate or some kind of scam. Finally, he picked up his desk phone and called upstairs. "Miss Morrison, this is security in the lobby. There's a gentleman here who says he found your wallet." A pause. "Yes, ma'am. I'll send him up." The guard hung up and looked at Marcus with new respect. 34th floor. Elevators are to your right. Marcus rode the elevator up, very aware of how out of place he looked. The other people in the elevator, all in business attire, moved subtly away from him. He didn't blame them. He probably smelled. 3 years on the streets didn't leave you smelling fresh. The 34th floor was elegant office space. A receptionist looked startled when Marcus stepped off the elevator, but recovered quickly. "Mr. Webb, Miss Morrison is expecting you. Please follow me." She led him to a large corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Behind a massive desk sat a blonde woman in an expensive suit, talking rapidly on her phone. She looked up when Marcus entered, and her eyes widened. She ended her call quickly. "You're the man who found my wallet." "Yes, ma'am." "Marcus Webb." He pulled the wallet from his jacket and handed it to her. Jennifer Morrison took the wallet with trembling hands and immediately opened it. She counted the cash quickly, then looked through the credit cards and identification. Everything was there. She looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. Shock. Disbelief. You returned all of it, even the cash." "Yes, ma'am. $5,000. All there." Jennifer sank into her chair, still staring at the wallet. "I lost this yesterday. I've been frantic. I called credit card companies, filed a police report. I assumed someone had stolen it, that the cash was gone. I never thought." She looked up at Marcus. "You could have kept this money. Why didn't you?" Marcus didn't know how to explain. "It wasn't mine. It's your money. The right thing was to give it back. But you're—" Jennifer paused, clearly trying to figure out how to phrase it tactfully. "Homeless," Marcus finished for her. "Yes, ma'am. I've been living on the streets for 3 years, and yes, that money would have changed my life, but it's still not mine. Wouldn't be right to keep it." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "I don't understand. You're living on the streets and you returned $5,000 in cash. Do you understand how rare that is? How extraordinary?" Marcus shrugged uncomfortably. "Just did what anyone should do." "No," Jennifer said firmly. "Most people wouldn't. Most people would have kept it. Even people who aren't desperate would have kept it." She opened her desk drawer and pulled out her checkbook. "I want to give you a reward for your honesty." "That's not necessary, ma'am. I didn't do it for a reward." "I know you didn't. That's exactly why you deserve one." Jennifer wrote out a check and handed it to Marcus. "This is $500. Please take it." Marcus looked at the check. $500. More money than he'd seen in months. "Ma'am, this is very generous." "Thank you." Jennifer shook her head. "It's nothing compared to what you did." "Marcus, can I ask you something? How did you end up on the streets?" Marcus told her his story. The job loss, the eviction, the inability to find work, the cycle of homelessness he couldn't escape. Jennifer listened intently. "Do you want to get off the streets?" she asked. "Of course, but I don't know how. No address, no references, no recent work history. No one wants to hire someone like me." Jennifer thought for a moment. "What if I could help you? What if I could give you a chance?" Marcus felt hope stirring, something he hadn't felt in a long time. "What kind of chance?" "I own this company. We have positions, nothing fancy, maintenance, cleaning, building services. But it's work, regular pay, and with steady income, you could get housing." Jennifer leaned forward. "Marcus, you just demonstrated more integrity in one action than most people show in a lifetime. I believe in rewarding that. If you want the chance to rebuild your life, I'll give it to you." Marcus felt tears welling up. "You'd do that? You'd hire me? I'd give you the opportunity. The rest is up to you. But yes, I believe you've earned a chance." For the first time in 3 years, Marcus Webb had hope. Jennifer Morrison didn't just offer Marcus a job. She helped him rebuild his entire life. She connected him with a social services organization that specialized in helping homeless individuals transition back into housing and employment. They found him a spot in a transitional housing program where he could stay for 6 months while he got back on his feet.
Jennifer's company hired Marcus as a building maintenance worker. The job paid $15 an hour, not much by some standards, but a fortune to someone who'd been living on the streets. Marcus could work, save money, and gradually rebuild. But the transition wasn't easy. After 3 years on the streets, Marcus had to relearn how to function in normal society, showing up on time, following work schedules, interacting with coworker, managing money. Things that had once been automatic now felt foreign. His coworkers were kind but cautious. They knew Marcus's story, that Jennifer had hired him after he'd returned her wallet. Some admired his integrity. Others were skeptical, wondering if he'd be reliable, or if hiring a homeless person was a liability. Marcus was determined to prove himself. He showed up early every day. He worked harder than anyone else. He was polite, professional, and grateful for the opportunity. Slowly, skepticism turned to respect. The transitional housing program connected Marcus with a therapist who helped him process the trauma of 3 years on the streets. Homelessness wasn't just about lacking shelter. It was psychological trauma that left deep scars. The constant fear, the dehumanization, the loss of dignity. Marcus had to work through all of it. "You made an extraordinary choice when you returned that wallet," his therapist, Dr. Patricia Lee, told him. "That choice reflected who you are at your core. But now you have to believe you deserve the good things that are coming from it. You have to let go of the shame of having been homeless and embrace the possibility of a different future." That was the hardest part. Marcus had internalized so much shame. He'd felt like a failure, like someone society had discarded. Accepting that he deserved better, that he could have a future, required changing how he saw himself. 6 months into his new job, Jennifer called Marcus to her office. He went nervously, wondering if something was wrong. "Sit down, Marcus," Jennifer said. "I wanted to check in. How are things going?" "Good, ma'am. Really good. I'm in the transitional housing, saving money. Work is going well. I'm grateful every day for the chance you gave me." Jennifer smiled. "Your supervisor says you're one of the hardest workers in the building. Says you're reliable, professional, and kind to everyone. I'm proud of you, Marcus." Marcus felt emotion rising. "Thank you for believing in me, for giving me a chance when no one else would." "You gave yourself the chance," Jennifer said, "when you returned my wallet instead of keeping the money. That choice showed your character. I just recognized it and offered an opportunity. You're the one doing the hard work of rebuilding your life." She slid a folder across the desk. "I wanted to give you something. A bonus. $10,000. I've thought about it a lot. You returned $5,000 when you desperately needed it. That kind of integrity deserves to be rewarded beyond just a job." Marcus stared at the check in the folder. $10,000. More money than he'd ever had at once. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say. Say you'll use it wisely. Save it. Use it for a security deposit on an apartment. Invest in your future. You've earned it, Marcus." Marcus took the check with trembling hands. "I'll use it right. I promise. I'll save it. Get an apartment. Keep building. Thank you. Thank you for everything." 3 months later, Marcus's story went public in a way he never expected. A journalist named Robert Chen had heard about the incident, a homeless man returning a wallet with $5,000 in cash, and wanted to write about it. Robert tracked Marcus down and asked for an interview. Marcus was hesitant. He didn't want attention, but Robert convinced him that his story could inspire people, could change how society viewed homeless individuals. The article ran in the Boston Globe under the headline, "Homeless Man Returns Wallet with $5,000, Gets His Life Back." It told Marcus's full story, his job loss, his descent into homelessness, finding the wallet, the choice to return it instead of keeping the life-changing money, and how that choice had led to Jennifer hiring him and helping him rebuild his life. The story went viral. Local TV stations picked it up, then national news. Within days, Marcus's story was everywhere. People were moved by his integrity, by his choice to do the right thing despite desperate circumstances. But the attention brought something unexpected. Criticism. Some people questioned the story. Why would a homeless man return $5,000? It doesn't make sense. He must have known there'd be a reward. Others were more cynical. This is just a feel-good story. One homeless guy gets lucky. What about the thousands of others who don't find wallets and don't get rescued by rich people? The criticism stung, but it also sparked important conversations. Robert Chen wrote a follow-up article addressing the criticisms. Yes, Marcus Webb's story has a happy ending that most homeless people don't get. Yes, he benefited from one act of kindness, meeting one wealthy person who had resources to help. But that doesn't diminish what Marcus did. He made a choice that revealed his character. And his story challenges us to ask, how many other people with integrity and worth are living on our streets, invisible and dismissed? How many Marcus Webbs are out there who deserve chances but never get them because society has written them off? The article sparked a broader conversation about homelessness in Boston, about how people ended up on the streets, about the barriers to escaping homelessness, about society's responsibility to vulnerable people. Jennifer Morrison was interviewed as well. She spoke passionately about Marcus's character and about why she'd chosen to help him. "I've known wealthy, successful people who would have kept that money and justified it," Jennifer said. "Marcus had nothing and chose integrity anyway. That's extraordinary. And it made me think about all the assumptions we make about homeless people, that they're lazy, or addicts, or somehow deserving of their situation. Marcus showed me that homeless people are just people who've fallen through the cracks of an economic system that doesn't have safety nets for everyone. They're not bad people, they're struggling people, and many of them, like Marcus, just need a chance. Jennifer used her platform to advocate for better services for homeless individuals in Boston. She donated significant money to transitional housing programs, job training initiatives, and support services. She challenged other wealthy Bostonians to do the same. "We have resources," Jennifer told a charity gala audience. "We can afford to give people chances. We can afford to invest in programs that help people escape homelessness. The question isn't whether we can, it's whether we will." Marcus Webb taught me that one chance can change a life. Imagine what we could do if we extended chances to hundreds, thousands of people. The story's impact rippled outward. Donations to homeless services in Boston increased dramatically. Other companies followed Jennifer's example and created hiring programs for homeless individuals. The city expanded transitional housing options. Marcus became somewhat reluctantly a symbol of the issue. He was invited to speak at events, to share his story, to represent the possibility of redemption and second chances. But fame was uncomfortable for Marcus. He didn't want to be a symbol or a spokesperson. He just wanted to rebuild his life quietly. The attention also brought complications. People recognized him on the street. Some praised him. Others were hostile, accusing him of profiting from a good deed, of using his story for sympathy. Some homeless individuals he'd known on the streets were angry that he'd gotten out while they remained trapped. Marcus struggled with survivor's guilt. Why had he been the lucky one? Why did finding one wallet change his life when thousands of other homeless people remained invisible and forgotten? His therapist helped him process these feelings. "You can't save everyone, Marcus, but you can use your platform to draw attention to the issue. You can use your second chance to advocate for others. That's how you honor the people still struggling." Marcus decided to volunteer at the shelter where he'd once stayed. He served meals, talked with people experiencing homelessness, offered hope that escape was possible. He donated part of his salary to homeless services. He became an advocate, speaking at city council meetings about the need for more resources. "I was one wallet away from spending the rest of my life on the streets," Marcus told the city council. "One chance changed everything for me. But there are thousands of people in Boston who are just as deserving of chances, and don't get them. We need more transitional housing, more job training, more support services, more companies willing to hire people who've been homeless, more society willing to see homeless people as humans deserving of dignity and opportunity." His testimony, combined with Jennifer's advocacy and public attention to the issue, led to increased city funding for homeless services. New programs were created. More shelter beds became available. Job training expanded. Marcus's life continued to improve. After a year in transitional housing, he had saved enough for a security deposit on a small apartment, his own place. After 3 years on the streets, he had an address again. He was promoted at work from maintenance to building supervisor. His salary increased. He could afford not just survival but small comforts, a TV, decent furniture, new clothes. Jennifer remained a mentor and friend. She checked in regularly, offered guidance, celebrated his milestones. "You've built an entirely new life," she told him on the 1-year anniversary of returning her wallet. "I'm so proud of you, Marcus. I wouldn't have any of this without you," Marcus said. "You gave me a chance when no one else would." "You earned that chance," Jennifer replied, "and you've done the hard work of rebuilding. That's all you, Marcus. I just opened a door. You walked through it and kept going."
2 years after returning Jennifer's wallet, Marcus's story continued to create ripples. Other companies in Boston had created programs similar to Jennifer's, hiring homeless individuals and providing support for their transition. The programs had mixed success. Some people thrived like Marcus. Others struggled with addiction or mental health issues that made employment difficult. But overall, the programs helped dozens of people escape homelessness, and they changed corporate culture in Boston, making companies think about their role in addressing social problems. Marcus became involved with a nonprofit called Second Chance Boston that helped formerly homeless individuals find employment and housing. He served on their board, using his experience to shape programs and advocate for clients. One day, Marcus was volunteering at the shelter when he met a young man named David, 24 years old, who'd been on the streets for 6 months after aging out of foster care. David was intelligent, motivated, but completely lost about how to escape homelessness. Marcus saw himself in David. He sat down with the young man and told his own story, the 3 years on the streets, finding the wallet, the choice to return it, how that choice had led to the opportunity to rebuild. "You found a wallet with $5,000 and gave it back?" David asked, incredulous. "Man, I don't know if I could do that." "I almost didn't," Marcus admitted. "I stood there for a long time thinking about keeping it. But I realized that who I am matters more than what I have. If I'd stolen that money, I'd have had cash, but I'd have lost myself. Does that make sense? And that integrity opened a door for me. Not because I did it expecting a reward, but because someone recognized character and chose to reward it. You have that same integrity, David. I can see it, and I want to help you the way Jennifer helped me." Marcus connected David with Second Chance Boston. He personally mentored the young man, helping him navigate job applications, prepare for interviews, manage the transition from streets to housing. He introduced David to his own employer, who hired David for an entry-level position. David's story became Marcus's way of paying forward the chance he'd been given. Over the next several years, Marcus mentored dozens of homeless individuals, helping them find work, housing, and hope. Not everyone he tried to help succeeded. Some struggled with addiction or mental illness that required more intervention than Marcus could provide. Some weren't ready to change. Some fell back into homelessness despite support, but enough succeeded to make the effort worthwhile. Marcus kept a list of people he'd helped, who'd successfully transitioned off the streets. After 5 years, the list had 37 names, 37 people who had homes, jobs, and futures because Marcus had extended to them the same chance Jennifer had extended to him. Your choice to return my wallet changed your life. But you didn't stop there. You've used your second chance to create second chances for others. That's legacy, Marcus. Marcus thought about the wallet often. How close he'd come to keeping the money. How different his life would be if he'd made that choice. He'd still be on the streets, probably. Still struggling. Still invisible. One choice. One moment of integrity. It had changed everything. 5 years after returning the wallet, Marcus was invited to speak at a fundraising gala for Second Chance Boston. The event was held at a beautiful venue in downtown Boston, attended by hundreds of wealthy donors. Marcus stood at the podium in a suit Jennifer had helped him pick out. 5 years ago, he'd been wearing layered dirty clothes and sleeping on a bench. Now he was addressing Boston's elite about homelessness and second chances. 5 years ago, Marcus began, I was living on the streets. I'd been homeless for 3 years. I'd lost everything. My job, my home, my dignity, my hope. I thought I'd die on those streets. I thought I'd been forgotten by society, discarded like trash. He paused, looking at the well-dressed audience. Then one morning I found a wallet. Inside was $5,000 in cash. More money than I'd seen in 3 years. Money that could have changed my desperate situation immediately. Marcus pulled out the wallet, the same one, now worn and carried as a reminder. I could have kept this money. No one would have known. I could have justified it. I need it more than the rich person who lost it. But I didn't. I returned it, all of it. Because my grandmother taught me that character is who you are when no one's watching. And I wanted to be someone with integrity, even if I had nothing else. He told the story of finding Jennifer, returning the wallet, the shock on her face that he'd returned the cash. Miss Morrison didn't just give me a reward. She gave me a chance. She hired me. She connected me with services. She believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. That chance changed my life completely. Marcus gestured around the room. Everyone in this room has resources. You have money, connections, influence, and I'm asking you to do what Jennifer Morrison did for me. Give chances to people who society has written off. Hire formerly homeless individuals. Donate to programs that help people transition off the streets. Advocate for policies that provide safety nets so people don't fall into homelessness in the first place. His voice grew passionate. There are thousands of Marcus Webbs living on Boston's streets right now. People with integrity, with worth, with potential. They just need chances. They need society to see them as humans deserving of dignity and opportunity. You have the power to give those chances. The question is, will you? The audience gave Marcus a standing ovation. After his speech, dozens of people approached him wanting to know more about Second Chance Boston, asking how they could help, writing checks for donations. Jennifer found Marcus afterward. You've come so far, she said, hugging him. I'm so proud of you. I wouldn't be here without you, Marcus replied. You saw something in me when I couldn't see it myself. You gave me a chance when no one else would. Everything I have, everything I've become, it started with your kindness. Jennifer shook her head. It started with your integrity. I just recognized it and responded to it. You did the hardest part, Marcus. You made the right choice when the wrong choice would have been so much easier. And you've spent 5 years paying that choice forward, helping others, creating more ripples of kindness and opportunity. That's all you. They were interrupted by a young woman approaching hesitantly. Mr. Webb? I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Rachel. I'm one of the people you helped 3 years ago. You remember me? Marcus studied her face and recognition dawned. Rachel, you were at the shelter. We talked about your job applications. You helped me prepare for interviews. You introduced me to an employer. You believed in me when I'd given up on myself. I just wanted you to know, I have an apartment now, a job I love, a stable life, because you helped me. Thank you. Marcus hugged her. I'm so happy for you, Rachel. You did the work. You rebuilt your life, because you showed me it was possible, because you gave me hope. Rachel smiled. I'm paying it forward now. I volunteer at the shelter. I help other women transitioning off the streets, just like you helped me.
Watching Rachel walk away, Marcus felt the full weight of what his choice 5 years ago had created. He'd returned a wallet, received a chance, rebuilt his life, and now was helping others do the same, and those others were helping still more people. One choice, 5 years of ripples, dozens of lives changed.
10 years after finding Jennifer's wallet, Marcus Webb sat in his modest but comfortable apartment in Dorchester, reflecting on a decade of transformation. He was 62 now, still working but thinking about eventual retirement. He'd been promoted several times over the years, and now managed facilities for Jennifer's entire company. He made a comfortable salary, had savings, owned a used car, lived independently. He'd helped over 100 formerly homeless individuals find work and housing through his mentorship and advocacy. Not all had succeeded, but enough had to make the effort profoundly worthwhile. Second Chance Boston had grown from a small nonprofit to a major organization with city and state funding, helping thousands of homeless individuals annually. Marcus served as board president, using his experience to guide programs and policy. Jennifer Morrison remained a close friend and supporter. She had expanded her company's social responsibility programs far beyond just hiring formerly homeless individuals. She'd become a major advocate for addressing root causes of homelessness, affordable housing, mental health services, addiction treatment, job training. "Your story inspired me to think bigger," Jennifer told Marcus during their 10-year anniversary dinner. "To think about what wealthy people owe to society. To think about using resources for good. You changed my life as much as I changed yours, Marcus." Marcus smiled. "We changed each other's lives. That's what happens when integrity meets compassion. When someone makes the right choice, and someone else recognizes and rewards it." They'd told this story hundreds of times over the years, at fundraisers, in interviews, at advocacy events. It had become somewhat mythologized, the homeless man who returned $5,000. But the power of the story never diminished, because it was true, and because it represented something people needed to believe in, that integrity mattered, that kindness could transform lives, that second chances were possible. Marcus thought often about the thousands of homeless individuals who never got their miraculous second chance, who never found a wallet, who never met a Jennifer Morrison, who remained trapped on the streets despite having integrity, despite deserving better. That's what motivated his advocacy work. "I was lucky," Marcus told audiences. But luck shouldn't determine whether people escape homelessness. We need systems that give everyone chances, not just the lucky few who happen to do something extraordinary that gets noticed. He pushed for policy changes, more affordable housing, better mental health services, job training programs, removing barriers that made it difficult for homeless individuals to get identification documents or open bank accounts. Systemic problems required systemic solutions. The work was slow and frustrating. Homelessness remained a massive problem in Boston and nationwide, but progress was being made. More resources existed, more people understood the issue, more companies were willing to hire formerly homeless individuals, more society was willing to see homeless people as humans deserving of dignity. Marcus's own life remained modest. He could have leveraged his story for more, written a book, done paid speaking tours, profited from his fame, but that felt wrong. He'd returned the wallet because it was the right thing to do, not for attention or reward. He wanted to keep that integrity. "You've stayed true to yourself," his therapist, Dr. Lee, told him during a check-in session. "You've had opportunities to cash in on your story, but you've consistently chosen substance over profit. That's the same integrity you showed when you returned the wallet. It's who you are, Marcus." Marcus thought about his grandmother, who'd raised him and taught him about character. She died before he became homeless, before his fall and subsequent redemption. He wished she could see him now. He thought she'd be proud, not just that he'd escaped homelessness, but that he'd used his experience to help others. But in year 11, Marcus faced a challenge that tested everything he'd built. A journalist published an investigative piece questioning parts of his story. The article didn't accuse Marcus of lying, but it raised uncomfortable questions. "Marcus Webb has become a symbol of homeless redemption," the article stated, "but his story is unusual to the point of being misleading. Webb was homeless for 3 years, but he didn't struggle with addiction or severe mental illness, issues affecting the majority of chronically homeless individuals. He was job-ready and stable. He just needed an opportunity." His story suggests that homeless people just need chances, when the reality is far more complex. Many homeless individuals need extensive mental health treatment, addiction recovery, and intensive support services. Webb's story, while inspiring, oversimplifies a complicated issue. The article went viral in social service circles. Some advocates agreed. Marcus's story was being used to promote a simplistic pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative that ignored the complexity of chronic homelessness. Others defended Marcus. His story is his story. It doesn't have to represent every homeless person's experience. And his advocacy work acknowledges the need for mental health and addiction services. Marcus was devastated by the criticism. He'd never claimed his experience represented everyone's. He'd always acknowledged that many homeless people faced challenges he hadn't. But now his story, the story that had defined his life for a decade, was being used as an example of what was wrong with homelessness narratives. Jennifer called him immediately after the article published. "Marcus, don't let this get to you. Your story is real. Your integrity is real. What you've accomplished is real." One journalist's critique doesn't diminish any of that. But Marcus couldn't shake his doubt. Was his story doing harm? Was he inadvertently promoting misconceptions about homelessness? Was he making it harder for people with addiction or mental illness to get help because his story suggested homeless people just needed jobs? He met with leaders from Second Chance Boston to discuss the critique. "We need to be more careful about how we tell Marcus's story," said Maria Santos, the executive director. "We need to emphasize that his path isn't the only path, that many people need more intensive support, that job placement alone isn't enough for everyone." Marcus agreed. "I never wanted to be the poster child for homelessness. I just wanted to share what happened to me. But if my story is being misused, if it's creating harmful narratives, then I need to tell it differently." They revised how Marcus's story was presented in Second Chance Boston materials. They added context about the diversity of homeless experiences. They emphasized that Marcus's path, direct job placement, worked for some people, but that others needed addiction treatment, mental health care, disability support, or long-term housing assistance first. Marcus also wrote an op-ed responding to the criticism. "My story is just one story. I was homeless, but I was also fortunate in many ways. I didn't struggle with addiction or severe mental illness. I was able-bodied and work-ready. When Jennifer Morrison gave me a job, I could immediately succeed because I just needed an opportunity, not extensive treatment or support. But I know my experience isn't universal. I work with homeless individuals every day through Second Chance Boston. I see people struggling with schizophrenia, who need medication and mental health care before they can think about employment. I see people fighting addiction, who need treatment and recovery support. I see people with disabilities, who need housing accommodations and income assistance. My story should never be used to suggest that all homeless people just need jobs and will be fine. That's false and harmful. The reality is that homelessness has many causes and requires many solutions. Job placement, addiction treatment, mental health care, affordable housing, disability support. We need all of it. So yes, I returned a wallet and got a second chance. But I also recognized that I was positioned to take advantage of that chance in ways many homeless people aren't. That doesn't make my story less valuable, but it does mean we need to be careful about what lessons we draw from it. The lesson isn't homeless people just need jobs. The lesson is people deserve second chances, and we need to provide the support necessary for them to succeed, whatever that support looks like for their individual situation. The op-ed was well received. It showed Marcus's growth and nuance in understanding the issue he'd become associated with. It demonstrated intellectual honesty and willingness to learn from criticism. The controversy ultimately strengthened Marcus's advocacy work. Instead of just being a symbol, he became a more sophisticated voice on homelessness policy. He educated himself extensively about addiction, mental health, housing policy, and social services. He surrounded himself with experts who could inform his understanding. Second Chance Boston evolved too. While maintaining their job placement programs for employment-ready individuals like Marcus had been, they expanded to provide more intensive support for people with complex needs. They partnered with addiction treatment centers, mental health clinics, and disability services. "We can't just be about job placement," Marcus told the board. "We need to meet people where they are. Some are ready to work. Others need treatment first. Others need housing stability before they can think about employment. We need to offer pathways for everyone, not just people whose experience mirrors mine." Under Marcus's leadership, Second Chance Boston became one of the most comprehensive homeless service organizations in Boston, offering a continuum of care from street outreach to permanent supportive housing. Jennifer continued her support, donating millions over the years. But she also learned from the criticism of Marcus's story. She started supporting a broader range of homeless services, not just employment programs. She funded addiction treatment, mental health services, and affordable housing development. "Your story opened my eyes to homelessness," Jennifer told Marcus. "But you've taught me that addressing homelessness requires understanding its complexity. I'm grateful for both lessons." 15 years after returning the wallet, Marcus was invited to speak at a national conference on homelessness. He stood before an audience of advocates, policymakers, and service providers from across the country. 15 years ago,
Marcus began. I was living on the streets of Boston. I found a wallet with $5,000. I returned it. That choice led to a job, a second chance, and ultimately to the life I have now. My story has been told many times. It's inspired people. It's raised money for homeless services. It's changed perceptions. He paused. But I want to tell you something important. My story is not the story of homelessness. It's a story, one path among many. And for years, I worried that my story was being used to oversimplify a complex issue, to suggest that homeless people just need opportunities and will be fine. Marcus looked at the audience. The truth is more complicated. Yes, some homeless people, like I was, are employment ready and just need chances, but many others need intensive support before they can work. They need addiction treatment, mental health care, disability services, trauma counseling, stable housing, medical care. We can't use my story to avoid the reality that addressing homelessness requires massive investment in multiple types of services. He clicked to his next slide, showing the diverse programs Second Chance Boston now offered. This is what comprehensive homeless services look like. Job placement for people who are ready, addiction treatment for people fighting substance abuse, mental health care for people with psychiatric conditions, supportive housing for people who need permanent help, street outreach for people who aren't accessing shelters, prevention services for people at risk of becoming homeless. Marcus's voice grew passionate. When I returned that wallet 15 years ago, I had no idea my story would become so public. I had no idea it would be used to represent homelessness broadly. If I could go back, I might tell it differently from the start. I'd emphasize that I was lucky, that my path isn't everyone's path, that solving homelessness requires much more than just giving people jobs. He looked directly at the audience. But I can tell it that way now. I can use whatever platform my story created to advocate for the comprehensive, complex, expensive, difficult work that actually addressing homelessness requires. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'll keep doing. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Marcus had evolved from a symbol into a sophisticated advocate. His willingness to acknowledge the limitations of his own story, to learn from criticism, and to push for more comprehensive solutions earned him credibility in the homeless services community. 20 years after finding the wallet, Marcus Webb was 72 years old and thinking about retirement. He'd spent 2 decades working in homeless services, helping hundreds of people directly and thousands indirectly through his advocacy and the programs he'd helped build. Second Chance Boston was now run by younger advocates, many of whom had themselves experienced homelessness. Marcus remained on the board, but had stepped back from day-to-day operations. David, the young man Marcus had mentored years ago, now ran the organization's employment programs. He'd gone from homeless at 24 to a successful program director at 44, and he credited Marcus with changing his life trajectory. Marcus taught me the same lesson Jennifer taught him, David said at Marcus's retirement celebration, that one person believing in you, giving you a chance, can change everything. He mentored me when I had nothing. He connected me with opportunities. He believed I could succeed when I didn't believe it myself. Now I try to do the same for others. That's Marcus's legacy. Not just the people he directly helped, but the ripple effect of all of us paying forward the chances we were given. Rachel, the woman who'd approached Marcus at the gala years ago, spoke next. I was homeless and hopeless when Marcus helped me. He didn't just connect me with a job. He showed me that my past didn't have to define my future, that I could rebuild, that I deserved a second chance. Now I run a women's shelter, and I tell every woman who comes through our doors, you deserve better, and we're going to help you get there. That's what Marcus taught me. Speaker after speaker shared similar stories. Marcus had helped them directly, or they'd been helped by programs he'd built, or they'd been inspired by his advocacy. The room was filled with people whose lives had been touched by one homeless man's choice to return a wallet 20 years ago. Jennifer Morrison spoke last. 20 years ago, I lost my wallet. A homeless man found it and returned it, including $5,000 in cash that he desperately needed. I gave him a job as a thank you. I thought that would be the end of the story. Instead, it was just the beginning. Jennifer's voice grew emotional. Marcus didn't just rebuild his own life. He spent 20 years rebuilding other people's lives. He became one of Boston's most effective advocates for homeless services. He helped create programs that have assisted thousands of people. He changed how this city thinks about and responds to homelessness, all because he made one choice to do the right thing when the wrong thing would have been so much easier. She looked at Marcus. You taught me that integrity matters, that character matters, that we should invest in people who demonstrate those qualities, regardless of their circumstances. You taught me that homeless people aren't a problem to be solved. They're humans who deserve dignity, opportunity, and support. Those lessons changed my life and how I use my resources. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Marcus stood to speak, overwhelmed by emotion. I don't think of myself as special. I just returned a wallet that wasn't mine. I made one choice to do the right thing. Everything that came after, the job, the second chance, the life I rebuilt, the work I've done, All of it stemmed from that one choice. He looked around the room at all the faces, people he'd helped, people who'd helped others, the ripple effect of one decision made 20 years ago. If there's a lesson in my story, it's this: choices matter, character matters, integrity matters, not because virtue always gets rewarded, it doesn't, but because who we are matters more than what we have. I could have stolen that $5,000. I'd have had cash, but I'd have lost myself. Instead, I chose integrity, and that choice opened doors I never imagined. Marcus's voice softened. But I also want to say this: I was lucky, so incredibly lucky. Lucky that Jennifer recognized my integrity and rewarded it. Lucky that I was healthy enough to work when given a chance. Lucky in ways many homeless people aren't. My story shouldn't be used to blame people who don't escape homelessness. It should be used to show what's possible when we invest in people, when we give second chances, when we see humans instead of problems. He paused, looking at the crowd. Thank you all for being part of this journey, for the work you do, for the lives you change, for believing that everyone deserves dignity and opportunity. That's the real lesson. Not that I'm special, but that everyone deserves what I was fortunate enough to receive: a second chance. Marcus Webb died peacefully in his sleep at age 78, 6 years after his retirement. He left behind a modest estate, most of which he donated to Second Chance Boston and other homeless service organizations. His funeral was attended by hundreds of people, former colleagues, people he'd helped over the years, advocates he'd worked alongside, Jennifer Morrison and her family, and dozens of formerly homeless individuals whose lives Marcus had changed. David gave the eulogy. Marcus Webb's life can be divided into before and after. Before he found the wallet, he was living on the streets, forgotten by society, struggling to survive. After he found the wallet and made the choice to return it, he became one of Boston's most impactful advocates for homeless services. David looked at the crowd, but Marcus would want me to tell you that the before mattered as much as the after, that his 3 years on the streets taught him empathy, taught him what it felt like to be invisible, taught him what homeless people really needed. He never forgot those years. He never forgot what it felt like to be dismissed, dehumanized, discarded, and that memory fueled everything he did afterward. He continued, Marcus's story became famous because it's compelling. A homeless man finds $5,000 and returns it. That's dramatic. That captures attention. But the real story wasn't just that moment. It was the 26 years after, when Marcus used his second chance to create second chances for others. That's legacy. After the funeral, a group gathered at Marcus's apartment to go through his belongings. They found the wallet, Jennifer's wallet from 26 years ago, in a drawer, carefully preserved. Inside was a note in Marcus's handwriting. This wallet changed my life. Not because of the money inside it, but because of the choice it forced me to make. Keep the money and survive another day, or return it and stay true to who I am. I chose integrity. That choice led to everything good that came after. If you're reading this after I'm gone, know this: character matters. Integrity matters. The choices we make when no one is watching define who we are. Choose to be someone you're proud of, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Jennifer Morrison took the wallet and the note. She had them framed and hung in the lobby of Second Chance Boston's headquarters, alongside photos of Marcus and a plaque describing his life and work. The plaque read, Marcus Webb, 1946 to 2024. Marcus Webb was homeless and found a wallet containing $5,000. He returned it, demonstrating extraordinary integrity in desperate circumstances. That choice led to a second chance, which Marcus used to help hundreds of others escape homelessness and to advocate for comprehensive homeless services. Marcus taught us that character matters, that people deserve second chances, and that one person's integrity can create ripples that change countless lives. His legacy lives on in the people he helped, the programs he built, and the continued work of those he inspired. Character is who you are when no one is watching. Marcus Webb. 30 years after Marcus found the wallet, his story remained a touchstone in Boston's homeless services community. Second Chance Boston had helped over 10,000 people transition off the streets. The comprehensive service model Marcus had helped build became a template used nationwide. Jennifer Morrison, now 75, continued her philanthropy, having donated over $50 million to homeless services over 3 decades. She remained active on Second Chance Boston's board and spoke frequently about how one returned wallet had changed her understanding of wealth, responsibility, and social obligation. Marcus taught me that rich people have responsibilities beyond just accumulating wealth, Jennifer said at a fundraiser. We have resources that can change lives. The question is whether we use them. Marcus used one moment of integrity to change his life, and hundreds of others. I've tried to use my resources to do the same. That's his legacy, inspiring people to be better, to give more, to care more. David, now leading Second Chance Boston, had implemented innovations Marcus would have been proud of. The organization had expanded to provide services throughout Massachusetts. They'd pioneered new approaches to chronic homelessness. They'd successfully advocated for state and federal policy changes. Everything we do is built on Marcus's foundation, David told new staff during orientation. The comprehensive service model, the focus on dignity and respect, The understanding that every person deserves a second chance. That's all Marcus. He's not here anymore, but his values guide everything we do. The wallet remained in the lobby, a physical reminder of where it all started. Staff would sometimes pause in front of it, reading Marcus's note, drawing inspiration from his choice 26 years ago. Visitors would ask about it. That's the wallet, Staff would explain, and then tell the story. A homeless man. $5,000. The choice to return it. The life that choice created. The ripples that spread outward for decades. Some visitors were skeptical. One choice doesn't really change everything like that, does it? But staff who'd worked with Marcus knew better. It does, they'd say. One choice, one moment of integrity. One person recognizing and rewarding that integrity. That's all it took. And then Marcus spent the rest of his life multiplying that one moment into thousands of changed lives. The story continued to be told in training sessions, at fundraisers, in advocacy work. Each telling carried Marcus's message: character matters, integrity matters, second chances matter, people matter. And each year dozens of people who'd been helped by programs Marcus created or inspired would share their own stories. Stories of escaping homelessness, rebuilding lives, finding hope. Stories that traced back, directly or indirectly, to one homeless man's choice to return a wallet instead of keeping the money that could have changed his desperate circumstances. One choice. 26 years of ripples, thousands of lives changed. That was Marcus Webb's legacy. Not that he was special, but that he'd shown what one moment of integrity could become when met with compassion, when given a chance, when used to help others rather than just oneself. In the lobby of Second Chance Boston, beneath the framed wallet and Marcus's note, a quote was inscribed: "I returned the wallet because it wasn't mine. I built a new life because someone gave me a chance. I helped others because that's how you honor the chances you receive. Character, compassion, and paying it forward. That's all any of us can do." Marcus Webb. And every day, staff and clients would pass that quote, be reminded of its message, and try to live up to the standard Marcus had set. One choice, one person, endless ripples. That was enough. More than enough. Everything. This story is dedicated to every person who has made the right choice when the wrong choice would have been easier. To everyone who has shown integrity in desperate circumstances. To everyone who has given second chances to those who deserve them. Your choices matter. Your character matters. The ripples you create change the world.
Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.